Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Amitabh Bishwas. I am working as an assistant professor in Division of Forensic Science, School of Basic and Applied Sciences in Galgodias University. So in this video tutorial, I will be teaching you the handwriting examination. What are the general and the individual characteristics of the handwriting and what are the rules for the handwriting examinations. As we know that what handwriting means, handwriting or a penmanship is the procured aptitude and obviously one that is complex, perceptual engine undertaking now and then alluded to us as a neuromuscular errand as defined by the Hilton. Now, handwriting is the yield of adjusted coordination between hand muscles and mind. Three distinct regions of the mind plays vital parts in writing. First, primary motor area, which controls over the fine developments. Second is the premotor region, which offers control to our visual direction. And the third is the supplementary region, which manages muscle and the sequencing of the terminating strokes. Now, the hand is to a great degree intricate and sensitive component containing approximately 27 bones controlled by more than 40 muscles. Their capacity in controlling our written work instrument is exactly organized by a planning framework under a neuron control of developments of the arm, the hand and the fingers. The exact requesting and the timing of the developments decides the structure of the example that is recorded by the pen or pencil or any instrument. The development of writing is complex because it is in part culture dependent and cultures differ with the locales and undergo constant change. The evidence of this dependence is manifest in class system or natural characteristics. Writing is a continuous or a flowing task, not one of the discrete or separated actions. There are apparent interruption at word boundaries, but in many cases the pen movement may be continuous and uninterrupted, although not recorded as an inked line. So this is the basis of this module. What are the learning outcomes of this module? The first is what is the definition of the handwriting and handwriting examination. What are the importance of handwriting in forensics? Last is the examination of the handwriting and the signatures. And what are the principles involved in handwriting identifications as well as the general and basic and the individual characteristics of the handwriting identifications. And the most important is the characteristics of the forged handwriting or signature. So these are our learning outcome from this module. Now, why handwriting is important? The question arises before we do the lots of examination and all the things. Why handwriting is important? Handwriting has a very long history. It began as a simple pictographs drawn on the rocks which were combined to represent ideas and developed into a more abstract symbols, just like our writing today. Early symbols were used to store information and communicate it to others. In recent years, modern technology has dramatically changed the way we communicate through writing. However, despite the increased use of computers for writing, the skill of handwriting remain important in education, employment, and in everyday life. Time devoted to the teaching and learning of letter formation in the early years will pay off. Legible writing that can be produced comfortably at speed and with little conscious effort allows a child to attain the higher level aspect of writing composition and content. This is important when assessments are based on written work, particularly in time limited written examinations, which remain as the major form of assessment for many formal qualifications. Without fast and legible handwriting, student may miss out on learning opportunities and underachieve academically. So we know what is the importance of handwriting now also, before also, and it will remain important to ourselves. Now before going to handwriting identification, we will learn about the principle involved in handwriting identification. Now we know that forensic document examiner often deal with the questions of document authenticity. To determine whether a document is genuine, an examiner may attempt to confirm who created the document, determine the time frame in which it was created, identify the material used in its preparation, or uncover the modification to the original text. All other things being equal, the significance of any combination of characteristics, qualities, and features as evidence to establish the identity of the writer is directly proportional to the speed, spontaneity, and the naturalness with which the writing is executed. And secondly, the frequency of occurrence in random writings of the combination of those particular characteristics, qualities, and the features of the writing that when considered collectively making it identifiable. Given a sufficient amount of handwriting, no two skilled writer exhibit identical handwriting features. The examined writing, questioned and the known must be suitable and sufficient in quantity and quality to conduct a meaningful examination and comparison. The comparison process can become more difficult because of the adverse influence of one or more factors on either or both the questioned and the known writing, like unnatural writing resulting from a transitory or a permanent factor affecting the writer at the time he was writing, that is stroke or a drugs, alcohol, or a cold writing, handwriting surface imperfections. These are some of the factors. When the writer attempts to conceal his normal handwriting habits by deliberately disguising his writing, he may write more than one style of writing, etc. No two writers have been found to write exactly the same way, nor do they incorporate in their writing exactly the same combination of characteristics, qualities, and the features. Some writers have been found to have more than one style of writing that they can write with the equal proficiency. These variations are called natural variations. Natural variation in the handwriting are the marks of genuineness and also considered as a consistency in handwriting. By definition, natural variation is an imprecision with which the habits of writer are executed on repeated occasions. So, the natural variation are inevitable and will be present in any writing or signature. Natural variation are accepted attribute of the standard, for which allowance must be made in the study of any apparent disparity between the standards and the unknown or the question writing. The individuality of the handwriting also comes with the natural variation in the one's writing. In simulating or tracing another person's writing, the imitator or the forger goal is to copy or draw those characteristics, qualities, and the features of the model writing that strike his eye most forcibly. Typically, in a simulation, the simulator many times disregard those characteristics, qualities, and the features of the model writing that are less conspicuous or that he knows he cannot write. Now, we will learn about the class characteristics of the handwriting. Now, the class characteristics, as the name suggests, of the handwriting are defined by a number of times by different experts, but the Ordway Hilton defines it as not all characteristics encountered in the document examination are peculiar to the single person or a thing, and one that is common to the group may be described as a class characteristics. Now, in a paper entitled Handwriting Identification for the Investigator, the definition of class characteristics belong to the system or a style of writing the person learned. They may also forms or features added to the letter by environmental or cultural influences. Everyone's writing consists of combination of class and individual characteristics. To what extent and in what combination is dependent upon the individual. This is one of the basic reasons why handwriting is identifiable. Experts usually examine the following characteristics when examining the handwriting samples. First is the line quality. Do the letters flow or are they written with very intense strokes? Line quality is defined, the letters are in flow or within the lines or stroked or intent. Second is spacing of the words and letters. What is it means that what is the average space between the words and letter. Third is ratio of the height, width and the size of letters, that is that the letters are inconsistent with the height, width and size or not. Fourth is lifting pen. Thus, it means that does the author lift his or her pen to stop writing a word and start a new word. Fifth, connecting strokes means how are the capital letters are connected to the lowercase lettering or how the lowercase lettering are connected with each other. Sixth is strokes begin and end, where it does mean that where the letter begins and the end should be noted on the page. Next is unusual letter formation. So, the expert should consider this class characteristics as there are any letter written with unusual slant or angles or some letter printed rather than in a cursive. So, this should be noted by the expert. Next is pen pressure, that how much pen pressure is applied upward and downward stroke to make upward and downward strokes. Next is slant. Do letters slant to the left or a right side? If slant is pronounced, a protractor may be used to determine the angle or a degree with the base. Next is baseline habits. Does the author write on the line or does the writing go above or below the line? Next is fancy writing habits. Are there any unusual curls or roofs or unique style or putting on ornaments to the words? Placement of diacritics. How does author cross the T's? He forms the dots of I's. So this is the very unusual things which is done by the writers. So we have to take care of all the class characteristics. It is virtually impossible to find any writer who can imitate exactly all the characteristics, qualities and the features of another person handwriting while simultaneously suppressing his own. So now we will discuss the next part, which is individual characteristics of the handwriting. Now what is individual characteristics? As we have discussed the class characteristics, now we have to define the individual characteristics which are unique to the handwriter. Handwriting is the unique to each individual. There are certain characteristics which are unique for individual, which he or she had acquired from many years of writing. Although some people handwriting may have similar styles and characteristics in common, acquired when these people learn to write by copying letters and words. They tend to make or take on individual style with age. Also, as a person ages, their handwriting will show additional changes. By definition, if the writing is a simulation, the writer is copying a model that is either in front of him at the time he is writing, or he is writing the simulation from the memory. It is virtually impossible to find sufficient evidence in a simulation to identify the writer of the simulation. All conclusion concerning authorship or writing on document is based on the examination and consideration of the evidence on a specific examined documents. A conclusion reached based on the examination and comparison of a copy, photocopy, fax, microfilm, carbonless paper, etc., perpetually of the original document of whatever type of and generation cannot be extrapolated back to the original the copy purports to represent. Now coming to the next part of this module is handwriting and signature examination. When there is a suspect in a crime and the evidence includes a handwritten note, investigator may call the handwriting expert to see if there is a match or not. In some cases, it might be one piece of the evidence that gets a suspect charged and eventually convicted. But what if it is a false match? How exactly do experts go about analyzing someone's handwriting? In handwriting analysis, original document must be procured for evidence. Handle original document as little as possible. Keep them protected in archival sleeves or folders. Never work with the original documents. Always make photocopies or any copies to work with as stated by the Osborne. Now first of all, examine the class characteristics of the handwriting as discussed in the previous topic, like examining the spacing between the letters, words, slant and other speed expression. After careful assessment of all class characteristics as defined, if you found similarities in all aspects, then start with individual characteristics, such as look for any individual marks like beginning or ending of stroke or connecting strokes, any special letter formation or letters that are connecting the strokes, any unusual letter formation such as loops and curls or a mixtures of cursive and printing of letters. Is there any shading letters due to uneven pressure applied in writing? Class characteristics, as mentioned, thorough examination may rule out various important factors before examination of individual characteristics and signs of forgery. Next, we take the signature and their examination. Now, signature serves as a mean of identification and are typically used in the course of business to authorize the financial transaction or even establish the legality of important documents. Signature can be disputed on all kinds of documents, including wills, financial documents, contracts, agreements, checks, etc., and even maybe in the application form or examination forms. Now, signature verification may be applied to cases involving alleged cases. The authenticity of the signature on the business documents such as contracts or agreements often forms the point of contention between two parties in the civil disputes. In such cases, a forensic handwriting expert will compare the signature on the questioned document with the specimen to determine if the said person could have signed those documents or not. In a typical signature case, detailed microscopic comparative examination are made to set of known specimen signatures and one or more questioned signatures, and the writer of which is in doubt. Signature forgery can occur in many ways, including freehand simulation, tracing, and image transfer. Alternatively, a signature may be written with some disguise with a view to disavow it at later time. It must be noted that a finding that a signature is genuine does not establish the genuineness of the document as whole, as it may be product of some form of document manipulations. Experts need to perform consolidated examination of the documents. Now, coming to the what are the characteristics of the forged handwriting and signature. Writing in the forged documents tend to be slowly written and will show a lack of individuality. This forged writing have specific characteristics as per the method used for the execution of the forgery. Likewise, for the disguised writing, if a suspected attempts to be disguise their writing, they will generally exhibit inconsistent slant and letter formation with a major change in the size of their letters. As they write, there will be lack of rhythm, irregular spacing, and unnatural starts and stops. Whereas for the simulation or simulated signature or a freehand forgery, as it's sometimes known as, is the unusual bill of fare for the caution document examiner. This forgery constructed by using a genuine signature as the model, the forger generates an artistic reproduction of this model. Depending on his skill and amount of practice, the simulation may be quite good and bear remarkable pictorial similarities to the genuine signature. Many simulations created with the model at hand will contain at least some of the general indicators of forgery, such as tremor, hesitation, pen lifts, blunt start and stops, patching, and static pressure. They will have slow drawn appearances. They practice simulation is the most often is the higher quality creation, in that the model signature has been memorized and some of the movements used to produce it have become semi-automatic. This simulation can be written with the more natural fluid manner. Both practice and non-practice simulation will still have notable shortcomings which can be identified by the examiner. The forger naturally put his greatest effort into these part of the name that he expect to fall under the greatest scrutiny. Next we are going to take signature forged by the tracing methods. Now while tracing may not normally present much of the challenge to the document examination as trying to determine the genuineness, the ability to identify the perpetrator is totally precluded. Tracing's another signature, or for that matter another's handwriting, is the paramount form of disguise. Total matching between the model and the questioned signature dictate the questioned document was or signature was a product of tracing. No two signature or handwriting even from the same person are ever totally duplicated. It's because of due to the natural variations. Now the transmitted light tracing had similar heights, ratio and proportion as of the signature used for the tracing. The carbon tracing is the crude method of tracing as it involved two steps. First tracing the writing with the help of carbon paper and then retracing the drawn trace marks of the carbon by the pen. Now during the covering up the trace line, the carbon deposition are seen around the periphery of the written line by the pen. The indented line in the tracing is produced is essentially the same manner, but does not employ any intermediate reproduction medium. Heavier pressure is used while tracing over the model signature. This pressure leaves an indented signature on the receiving document. This is then covered over with the broad tipped pen, although ballpoint is found on occasions. Major signs of the tracing are slow writing speed, blunt start and ends, tremors, etc. Now to summarize the whole module, the handwriting is the one of the primitive form of identification and the mode of communication. It is developed from the childhood with the practice. Handwriting is the outcome from the process involving brain, hand and eye coordination. Through the lifetime, a unique set of pattern is developed by the individual. There are some basic principles involved in the handwriting examination, like no two skilled writer can have identical writing if provided with the sufficient writing, and all the writing would be the same for the individual. It may vary from the same word to the letters, which is referred as a natural variation. On the basis of different class and individual characteristics, handwriting and signature are identified and matched with the suspected or a victim's writing. The signature are more prone to be forged during the course of financial transaction between the two parties. The forensic expert utilizes these identifying features of the handwriting and applies principles and distinguish between the genuine and non-genuine writings. So the handwriting and signature identification and examination need expertise and proper knowledge to give as an evidence in the court of law. I hope you have gained knowledge about the handwriting and signature examination. For more videos, tutorial, visit EPG Pathshala website. Thank you.